Rock and roll. Welcome to the Wares History page. The history of today, yesterday, and tomorrow of the Wares community area. And today we have Merrill Fay, the rock and roll brother, and we have Nick Tamposi, our co-host. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, God love.
And you guys were having some great interaction before we started filming of this area, and you were asking him.
We've been honored to have Merrill come join us on trying to preserve the history of this area. And, you know, when I would stop in at the shop sometimes, Merrill would give me some of the background and the history of what it used to be like when he was a kid. And I always wanted to see if we could try to capture that on film. So I'd love Merrill, if he could, to maybe give us a little bit of history of his family and how far back they go back to this particular, up at the lake.
You referred to the Weirs, but most of my family ended up in Meredith first. They were the original settlers of Meredith, but they came up through Exeter, New Hampshire, through Gilmanton, and right after the French and Indian War in 1762, my great-grandfather Ebenezer Smith settled in the Weirs, in Meredith, which was New Salem at the time, and it was part of Laconia and Gilmanton, and one of the first settlers there. And he started doing all kinds of things. Built the first bridge across the Weirs Channel, built a sawmill where they sawed a lot of lumber for the homes that they built. And he later, after the colonial governor got booted out in probably 1768, the town of Meredith was kind of really settled and incorporated. And he became the first selectman in Meredith. And when we have the Red Revolution, he helped write the Constitution for the state of New Hampshire. And then later, which he never went to the Continental Congress, but in Philadelphia, but he was very important. And he fought with General John Stark at the Battle of Bennington, or in Schuylersville, New York, and where the phrase "live free or die" came from, General John Stark. But then he came back, and he was your first state senator from Belknap County, and judge, and all kinds of things. One thing particular about him as being a judge, he tried to settle most of the court cases out of court by arbitration between the two parties, and he was very good at that, so I understand. He's buried up nearby Southdown Farms in Meredith. But anyway, now that's my mother's side of the family. On my father's side of the family, George Merrill. Now I get my first name from George's last name, Merrill. He married a lady by the name of Mary Bird, who came from the Isle of Malta through Canada and down into Meredith, and they had 5 or 6 children. And one of those children was my grandmother, Hattie Merrill, and she had a sister, Gertrude Merrill, who was Meghan Markle's great-grandmother, if you can believe that. So I got a little royalty in my family, but they don't know it. But that's where we get to Meredith, and that he worked on a lake. He was out on Bear Island. He built a lot of cottages on Bear Island, and that's where my father kind of grew up on the lake, because of him. And my grandmother ran the hotel on the island, which burned in 24, and then I was born in 36, and grew up on Bear Island, and Dad in 44 bought the land where the boatyard is in Glendale, and believe it or not, all this land down through here was originally owned by the Smith people, so we bought back our own land.
Isn't that amazing?
And this was Smith Point, but now it's Varney Point, where the boatyard is today. Dad started the boatyard in 44, and I took it over in 60, and now my son Jeff is pretty much involved with it now.
Yeah.
But it's pretty good size. We take care of about 1,000 boats in the fall, in the wintertime, and probably a couple thousand people do business with us in the summer. And we're probably into sailboats more than anybody else in the state. We are the only boatyard left, but we are into sailboats because most people don't have the crew, which we have 5 of that work on sailboats all the time, that are interested in sailboats.
And that takes up roughly, I think you mentioned about a quarter of your business is with sale.
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
This building we're in right now, we sell sunfish and Hobie cats,
Yeah.
which now are kayaks, and we sell precision sailboats and J-boats. And that's pretty much our activity with sailboats. And then we have power boats, we have Scarab and Wellcraft and Glass Drawn,
Excellent.
and some rinkers too.
Yeah. Well, I'm a proud member of one of your people that service our boats, and you've always done a great job, and it's been an honor to be able to have you guys, you know, to do business with you. I like the way that you do business. I always like the way that you have always met and been very gentlemanlike and friendly, and you do a good business. So I'm really happy to do that. You had mentioned, Merrill, that you were selling ice, and that you were in the hurricane of 1938 when you were just a small kid.
That's right. Dad had, and Mom had a property that they built a camp on in 31 on Bear Island, East Bear Island, and we had an ice house there, and we put ice in the ice house, Dad did, in the wintertime, and then during the summer we delivered to the island people. And then I remember during the war, like in 43, 44, meat was very, very elusive. You didn't have much around, so we grew chickens in the ice house and during the summer. And then we'd have every Friday night, we'd have a chicken kill, and then we'd deliver them to the island people on Saturday.
That's pretty.
And so that's why I grew up. When I was 13, I started delivering groceries and ice and things on the lake. Then we got into propane gas, and Dad was still running the boatyard, and I was working out in the lake.
Fantastic. One of the things too that has always intrigued me was that you never played hockey, but you've got a great history of this area with hockey, and maybe you could just tell us a little bit about how you came into the hockey, you know, area and how it's affected this whole community.
Well, Dad loves hockey and skating, and we were in Rochester in the middle 40s, and he had a lot of French Canadian boys that went to school, and they all wanted to play hockey. So he built a rink at the school, Spalding High School, and I remember going out and flooding it once in a while when I was there. And he had a pretty good hockey team. They played Berlin and Concord and Dover and Central, Manchester, and Spalding. They were the only hockey teams there were in the early 50s. And then the weather got so warm that you couldn't make ice naturally. So that kind of went out. But then when Bobby Orr got into Boston, rinks started popping up everywhere. And then I had Bobby Orr up here once to raise money for our youth hockey, which was here. And my son, my little guy, could skate like the wind. And I said, boy, there's got to be something for him to do. So we got into youth hockey. And then we started raising money for the rink that we built in Laconia. We raised $1,700,000. And we built that rink in Laconia. We built one across the street, which is natural natural ice, not indoor. And that's
You started
where I
that
got-
out here, though. That was
Yeah,
the first
with-
one, was the
with the
Guilford-
town.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for the town.
Yeah.
But you started that, and at that time, that was when? What years was that?
probably in the late 70s.
Yeah.
And then we built the one in Laconia in 93, I think. And we raised a lot of money for that. We now have 6 hockey teams playing, 6 high school hockey teams playing out of the Laconia rink, and 3 junior teams from U14s to U19s. And they play all over New England.
Fantastic.
And
Fantastic.
there's hockey is big in New Hampshire now.
Yeah. I know that, have you done anything or looked at the pond hockey that they're doing up in Meredith?
I've been approached by the Crowders, and I have a Zamboni, and they're trying to buy it just to make it a little easier for them in the time of year when they're out in the ice. But I haven't been involved in pond hockey, but all the kids get involved.
Yeah, it's quite a growing sport too,
Yeah.
for the pond hockey. As far as your children are concerned, you have Jeff that's running the marina here.
Yeah,
You have a son, Will,
yes.
and he is mainly operating out of the hockey rink in Laconia.
He does that, yes. Yep.
And then you have a younger son, Misha.
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 It's a
And he's
Russian
at,
name.
Cardigan, at Cardigan School,
He's
is
at
he?
Cardigan Mountain School now, and then I have an older daughter,
Yeah.
Carrie. Her last name is, her first name is Carey, C-A-R-E-Y, because my grandfather came down from Vermont and married my grandmother, and his last name was Carey.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, your family goes back to this area from the 1700s.
1760s, yeah, in the mid 1700s.
And there is
Yeah.
some English in you.
I guess so. I guess
So
in
if
English.
if I took a knife right now, I could cut you and it would bleed blue?
Oh, yes.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
And the other thing you were talking about was your great-great-grandfather was that built the first bridge over the Weirs?
That's right,
Wow.
Ebenezer Smith.
And what
Yeah.
year was that?
1780. It was a low bridge, and the Weirs Channel, Weirs water wasn't running very fast.
Yeah, it's
That's
like,
an
that never
incredible
froze
thing.
though, the Weirs.
No,
It
the
never
water
froze.
would run out through there.
Yeah,
Then,
it never froze.
you know why they call it the Weirs?
Yeah. Go ahead, my friend.
Because the Indians used to come and they'd set up a weirs where fish, shad, when they were coming up the river, and salmon were coming up from the ocean. We didn't have all the dams we have now from here to Newburyport. The fish would get caught in these things, and the Indians speared them, and then they would cook them, or I guess you smoke them for their substance in the wintertime.
Tremendous.
And that's why they call it the
The
weirs.
Weirs. Wow.
I mean,
Well, I think the Chris Craft, which Irwin's sold, the Chris Craft utility 22-footer is probably the most popular boat that I've been involved in. And we have a collection of 18s, 19s, 20s, 22s, up to 24s they're scattered all over the yard.
Fantastic.
And we've got some Dodge boats that go back in the 30s and some Lakers, which were built in Lakeport.
Yeah.
That's where my father really got started, because he lived in Lakeport, and a fellow by the name of Will McDuff, who was quite a machinist, had his shop there, and my dad used to go in there, Wilbur used to go in there and pick his tools up.
Wow.
And if you've ever seen my son's collection of McDuff engines,
Huh.
it's probably the only real collection
No kidding.
around. And I'll tell you a story about, we had a McDuff engine that was kind of junk, considered junk, and we used it for a mooring out on Bear Island. And my son found out about it about 5 years ago. He said, "Where's that, Dad?" And I told him. And he went and got it, brought it up, and within 3 days, he had it running.
Unreal.
Been in the bottom for 75 years.
Unreal.
And
That is cool.
That
That's
was
cool.
a two-cylinder, but he also found a four-cylinder 2 years ago, and he found the boat and everything on the bottom out on Cow Island, and he tried to bring it up, but the whole boat came up.
Yeah.
He tried to get the engine free from the boat. The whole boat came up, so they went back and they brought the whole boat in. They took the engine out of that one. That'd been down 100 years. He got that running, four
Unbelievable.
cylinders, and they're gonna redo the boat too.
That's
I
incredible.
couldn't believe that.
And,
but-
that's incredible. Just
He's
a
got
heck
quite a
of a
collection.
mechanic. He's a heck of a mechanic.
When he goes back to the old engines, he's probably the best around.
No kidding.
Yeah. And he loves it, so.
You had mentioned too that you went to Phillips Exeter,
Yeah.
and then your parents thought that maybe you ought to go out west.
No, my parents, I went from Spalding High School. I was president of my high school class in Spalding. My mother thought I had it too easy, so that's why I went to Exeter for a year. And then I went to Michigan.
Yeah.
And that was a very good experience to meet the Midwestern people. Then I came back, and it probably made it easy for me to converse with the Bostonians.
Yeah.
That came up, because most of our business does come out of Massachusetts.
Well, maybe that's where some of the stuff rubs off of why you're such a friendly individual and people really do love and care about you up in the area, is some of that Midwestern good family values and stuff, and easygoing has rubbed off on you a little bit and has had an influence. But it's always been a pleasure to see you. I know that you eat a lot up at George's Diner. Is that one of your favorite
Oh, yes.
spots on a
Yeah.
Sunday, I think?
Yeah.
I see you there with your family on Sunday. And
And you get down to the lakeside, down here near Walmart, and we did a big mural in there of the view from Lincoln Park.
it's
of
beautiful.
Mount Washington.
It is
That was
absolutely
neat, too.
beautiful. That, as a matter of fact, Pedler and I have lunch and breakfast there sometimes too. I didn't know that you had that done.
Yes, I did.
Fantastic.
My name is Bob Kyle, Marine Service. So this is we call it the Royal Fay family tree. And what brought this on was the royal wedding that was a few months ago. And Mr. Fay is actually related to Miss Markle, the bride in the royal wedding. And it goes back to Merrill's father's parents. And Merrill's mother, Haiti Merrill's a sister to about a 3-generation back from the Markle family. Hence the connection to the royal family. This represents Jeff Fay's motor collection. Over the years, probably at least 20, maybe more, he's restored these motors, usually 1 or 2 over the course of the winter. And I will say, every motor in this building, in this room, does run before they're put away. He's particularly interested in these series of motors, 1-cylinder, they're called McDuffs. And those were built in the 20s and 30s in Lakeport, New Hampshire. And several of these have actually been resurrected after he got them off the bottom of Lake Winnipesaukee.
What boats that crashed?
Well, over the years ago, when they scuttled the boats, i.e. they sank them because they didn't want to put them anywhere else. And Jeff has retrieved some of these motors off the bottom of the lake with his son because they're into scuba diving together. And he's put these back together with his parts and that he's collected over the years.
Tell me a little bit about McDuff. I'm not familiar with that name. Does it still exist? Or?
No, it was in the 20s and 30s. It was in Lakeport, New Hampshire, which was part of Laconia. And they built boats and they constructed these engines, I believe up to, I think the highest horsepower was only around 12 horse. But what it had is it had this feature that the McDuff patent, these reversing propellers. Rather than in lieu of a transmission, they were able to slide with a lever these back on this shaft, and these propellers the pitch would change, so you get forward and reverse. Hence, no transmission. This again is a 4-cylinder McDuff built in Lakeport, New Hampshire, and this is again the creation from Mr. McDuff in lieu of a transmission on these motors. As you can see, there was a folding propeller where you could change the pitch to give you forward, neutral, and reverse just by the simple drawing back and forth of this lever right here.
Rock and roll. I hope you enjoyed the show. Of course, we're going to ask Merrill, will you come down and Nixon do a fireside chat with us? You have so much great stuff to talk about, Merrill.
We can do that.
Well, I love it. I love it. And I want to thank Nick, our co-host, Nick Tamposi. We'll be down at his house. You're hanging out with us. You really dig it. And from now, you the viewers, we'll be back soon. This is the Where's History page for yesterday's, tomorrow, and today's history for you folks out there that want to enjoy the Where's community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Merrill, for
Enjoyed
joining
it
us.
and had fun. Thanks for coming to visit. We'll be here 100 years from now, too.